say, let me back up a little bit to the start. We were in California, in the middle of California in 1970 and 71. That was the hippie movement was rapidly dying. Most of the hippies were now using drugs to have special experiences, and Haight-Ashbury destroyed itself. It became a slum, where the famous place where the hippie movement was and all that. And a lot of the professors in the universities in San Francisco, Timothy Leary, Ram Dass, and all these guys had convinced themselves with that LSD is the answer to the human movement and the human evolution. And so they were lost in la la land. And the parts therapies, the famous therapies of that day, Gestalt, transactional analysis, Freudian, Reichian, Rosarian, conjoint family therapy, and all that, all of those systems had come up through the 50s and 60s. And in the middle 60s, they started to go to war with each other because my therapy is better than your therapy. And mine is the real one and yours is the bad one. So when people went to university, they had to select what army to join. Because if you're going to be a Gestaltist, then you can't study transactional analysis, because that's a stupid one and it'll screw up your work. So you're a Gestaltist. Then from that day forward, you have to be a Gestaltist army person, right? Yeah. And you talk badly about TA, you talk badly about Carl Rogers, you talk badly about those people because they're all stupid. So what happened in the middle 60s is the famous, wonderful parts therapies. About half of the people who developed them had died. Their students, their top students, were now, instead of continuing the development, we're going to war to prove that the guy who died was really brilliant and everybody else is stupid. So now you've got the humanistic movement, which was all fueled by the changes in these incredible people like Carl Rogers and Eric Berne and so forth, that most of us as students actually cherished. The humanistic movement, not the drug movement, but the humanistic movement at the time was the new thing in the world. The human beings are evolving in a positive way, and the world's going to be better, and so forth and so on. California, and we saw the three things that were the most important things in the world to us dying, just being destroyed, either by drugs or by stupidity or by the war. Okay, yeah. So one of the reasons we built NLP in the first place was to stop the war, get rid of the drugs, and get the humanistic movement back moving again. And give the different therapies credit for what they did and find out how the hell they worked so that they could become valuable in their own way. So that's why NLP was born. To save the humanistic movement and to stop the war between all the parts therapies, which were in those days the avant-garde way to deal with psychological problems. Yeah. And most of us were, I was fresh from the war, so I was pretty crazy. And John and Richard and the three of us are really crazy characters, and there's no way in hell we should have been able to do something like what we did. But with those 12 to 14 kids, testing everything we decided was cool and proving that we could adjust this, move this, take this, do this, and do this. And we developed the chunking down part with John's guidance. John's guidance is the key to everything that NLP is. And the 12, 14 kids were incredibly important. And it's very sad to me that almost nobody knows who their names and who they are and what they did. That's why I don't know if you've read Origins. Have you read Origins, the Origins of NLP? Okay.
No.
In that book, I wrote a chapter, John wrote a chapter, and a couple of the people like Dilts and Judy Deloger and those people, and they wrote chapters too. And the 12 people who did the work have no credit whatsoever. Until I wrote Origins, and in Origins, I made a special chapter with the people's names and a description of each one of those people and the contribution they made to the development of meta. And they're my friends. And I was very surprised to find out that in about 1975, 76, no, wrong. Later, when talking to John, maybe in the middle 80s, I asked him if he had talked to Ken Block lately. And he goes, who? And I said, Ken. And he goes, Ken was one of the main people in the Meta group, right? And he goes, well, who's that? And I go, what? You don't remember Ken Block? And he goes, no. He said, who is he? And I said, well, do you remember the crazy, super reasonable guy from Los Angeles that drove you crazy all the time by asking you the same stupid questions again and again and again? And he goes, yes, that's Ken Block. And I said, yes. And so